What's up, everybody? It's Roman Gennaro, host of Empire Sports Talk, and it's good to be back with you. We are a day later recording. As usual, we have another project in the works. You'll see that soon, hopefully, and I'll let you know when it is available. So we are recording this on Sunday afternoon. We have a ton to get to. This is a packed episode, so hold on tight. First things first, I want to talk about Coach Prime and how he made headlines this week with a report from several news outlets, but I think the New York Post was the first to reveal it, that he reportedly would only allow Travis Hunter and his sons, Shador and Shiloh Sanders, to go to the NFL if it was to one of six teams. Those six teams were the San Francisco 49ers, Dallas Cowboys, Washington Commanders, Baltimore Ravens, Atlanta Falcons, and Philadelphia Eagles. The first five of which were the five teams that Deion Sanders himself played for in the NFL. Sanders later shot down that report and said that it was a lie, that he wouldn't say that. But the thing about a lie and the source of a lie, and I'm not saying it's not a lie, and I like Deion Sanders. I think he's a good guy, but he does talk a lot. And he says he makes some bold statements. And the thing about a lie, when a news story comes out and one source says it's the truth and one source says it's a lie, you have to look at the sources. One source is a news outlet. Say what you will about the New York Post, but it's their job to report the news. The other source is somebody who has made outlandish statements in the past, who has done extremely bold things. So whether or not him saying that he would only allow his sons to play for these six teams is true, look at what's happened at Colorado since Deion Sanders took over. He took the job. He immediately told all current Colorado players to basically pack their bags. He said, "My guys are coming from Jackson State," and basically said, "They're coming to take your job, so pack your bags." Then there were multiple players who played for him and transferred away or graduated that called out the culture of Coach Prime, said it wasn't the best environment for players that didn't come with him from Jackson State. Then there were 15 departures from the program within 17 days of the transfer portal opening. Then Shiloh and Shador Sanders went to social media to recruit all available offensive and defensive transfer portal players to Colorado instead of Coach Prime. And that's generally the coach's job. I know things are different in the days of NIL, but it's not really a good look when you have all these players streaming out of your program because of reports that it's not, and then we get reports that it's not the best environment. You have all these players leaving, and then you have your two sons spearheading the recruitment effort in the transfer portal instead of you, the coach. And then the other thing, and it might or might not be related at all. You can take it what you want. Shador Sanders outwardly campaigning to be the cover athlete of the new NCAA Football 25 video game when it is released in July. This is not a big deal as far as on the field, but the fact that Colorado won 4 games a year ago, Coach Prime is not even at 500 in Boulder right now, and he has his son campaigning to be the cover athlete of a video game. Whatever you want to take from all these things that have happened since Coach Prime took over at Colorado, they happened, which means all is not quiet on the western front of Boulder, Colorado. And I see Shadur campaigning for the cover athlete position as a distraction. It's like, why don't you focus on winning more football games? And Coach Prime talked about how he thought Shador should have been like in the Heisman conversation, but they weren't winning games and all this sort of stuff. It is not quiet in Colorado. And then it's now this report that says Dion only would allow Travis Hunter and Shador Sanders and his other son Shiloh to play for one of six teams, five of which being the teams he played for. Even though I think Deion Sanders is a good guy, he says it's a lie, and I'm tempted to believe that it's true based on everything else we've heard out of the Colorado program in the last several months, in the last few weeks even. You know, when Travis Hunter went down with injury, there was all sorts of noise from the Colorado camp saying, "Oh, it was a dirty hit, it was all this sort of stuff," and maybe it was. But the Colorado Buffaloes football program has been anything but quiet since Deion Sanders took over, and a noisy program oftentimes is an unfocused program, and the record on the field shows us that. And so it wouldn't surprise me if this was true, even though Dion says it's not. I tend to believe that it is because it sounds like Dion. Let me know if you believe it's true or not. The rebuttal from Deion Sanders came very recently, so that's a new development. But there is a report out there that Deion Sanders would only allow Travis Hunter and his two sons to play for six NFL teams, which would not be the first time that we've heard players refuse to go to certain teams, but it would be the first time that we've heard the coach of those players be the one to say don't go to these teams, let alone the father of two of the players. And if it is true, I mean, Dion, look, people like you. I like you. We're rooting for Colorado to be exciting and successful. But you have good standing in the NFL at the moment. Don't ruin it by trying to dictate destinations for your players when they're not even getting drafted yet. It's not a good look, whether it's true or not. It's not a good look for your program for a false report like this to be out there, and it's certainly not a good look if it's true. So with that being said, there's a lot of noise at the Colorado program, so we'll have to keep an eye on it to see what happens next, because something else will happen. This is not the end. We're speaking of the NFL draft, so let's stay in the NFL for a minute. A very interesting report came out from New England. A lot of us were surprised when Bill Belichick did not end up with an NFL coaching job for next season, especially when it looked like the Falcons were zeroing in on hiring Bill Belichick as their next head coach. If you remember on this podcast, I for one did not think that was a good fit, but not a lot of other teams seemed interested. Now, this week, we got a report that Robert Kraft told Falcons owner Arthur Blank, quote, not to trust Bill Belichick, which I would imagine because Robert Kraft and Arthur Blank have a relationship, they've both been in this league for a very long time, led to the Falcons not hiring him as Arthur Smith's successor. Kraft also told Blank that he'd, quote, never had a warm conversation with Belichick and felt betrayed. The no warm conversation part is 100% believable if you have eyes and ears and you've seen and heard Belichick. That's believable. And then Belichick responded to that by saying he's not sure why Robert Kraft is acting out. I would believe Belichick's response a little bit more if we hadn't just had the Apple TV documentary, the Dynasty documentary about the Patriots, in which many former players, Tom Brady included, not so much spoke out against Belichick, but detailed the reality of what the quote unquote Patriot way was like and what the environment was like, and how other players stated that Belichick, even in years 15, 16, 17 for Brady, that Belichick kind of talked down to him and treated him like a kid, and all these reports that Belichick was not the warm and fuzzy teddy bear that is so definitely his reputation in the NFL, right? So no surprise there. And I don't think that it's necessarily Robert Kraft acting out. I think it's Robert Kraft finally being able to tell the truth about what was going on, as we saw from players in that documentary. Because when you're an owner of a team, your ultimate goal, and the same thing if you're a coach or a player, your ultimate goal is to win. And when you're winning covers up a lot of gaps and gray areas and band-aids that the organization might have. So as long as you're winning, you can overlook some of the more questionable activities and behaviors from coaches and players and things. But for the last few years, the Patriots have not been winning. The Patriot way is no longer working. So the parting of ways from Belichick and the Patriots was a long time coming, ever since Tom Brady won a Super Bowl with Tampa Bay, because the question at the time of their split of Brady and Belichick was, we kind of assumed immediately following the split that it would be Belichick that continued to have the success, because many assumed that it was Belichick that allowed Brady to have the success, and the only reason that Brady was successful was because of the system he was in. And that very quickly proved to be the opposite, where Tom Brady immediately went and won a Super Bowl with a brand new team, and Belichick has only had one playoff appearance with Mac Jones, who is now no longer with the team, since Tom Brady's departure. So I think Belichick's response is a bit ignorant of the other reports we have of the Tom versus Time documentary, of the Dynasty documentary, where people said, "Hey, Belichick was not easy to play for. Belichick talked down to a lot of guys. Belichick treated Brady like a rookie, even well into his sixth Super Bowl run." So this is not surprising to me that Bill Belichick seems to now have been blackballed in a way from the NFL, in that two of the best owners in the NFL, one for from a success standpoint and one from, we've heard all reports that Arthur Blank is a great owner in Atlanta because of the way that he treats his team and his players and their families. That one respected owner to another said, "Don't hire this guy." I think at this point we may be seeing the blackballing of Bill Belichick. There is all possibility that another team could take a chance, but I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't. So that was quite a shocking report out of Foxborough this week. Moving on to the NHL. As I've stated on previous podcasts, I am something of an NHL casual. But when I do watch the NHL. I don't know a ton about it, and that's why I call myself a casual. Like, I could talk X's and O's of baseball and basketball and football all day. I don't know as much about hockey because I only started watching it more recently, as in the last 10 or so years, and I don't watch every single game of my favorite team the way that I do for other sports. But when something does happen, I do like hockey. I love hockey. Playing the NHL video game to me is one of the best uh, video games out there as far as like reward. Um, because sometimes you play NBA 2K, career mode, or Road to the Show, or something like that, or Madden, and it can get a little too easy, and then you bump up the difficulty by one, and it's suddenly impossible. I feel like NHL like is just difficult enough to where like you can win, but it's a challenge. And then when you score a goal, to me, scoring a goal in NHL is like one of the most gratifying feelings that you can have, like playing video games. To me, that's just my opinion. I think scoring a goal in NHL is one of my favorite feelings when I'm playing video games. Um, but I do love hockey. I'm not super versed in it, but when something happens, I got to talk about it, and I think this is pretty cool. This week, Connor McDavid of the Edmonton Oilers became the fourth player in NHL history to reach the 100 assist mark in a season. And we talked about, oh, how cool is that? And then 2 days later, Nikita Kucherov of Tampa Bay became the fifth player. And I I I want to give both guys their flowers, but I want to stop for a minute and talk about Nikita Kucherov becoming the fifth, because I want to use Kucherov as a barometer to remind people, and I'll tell you why I feel the need to remind people because this might sound silly to most of you, to remind people how good Wayne Gretzky was. And I say this because I've seen many sports media pages and podcast pages and stuff on social media try to proclaim Alexander Ovechkin the GOAT. And I think that it's a case of recency. We're seeing Ovechkin, right? Gretzky retired in 1999. Most of us didn't see Gretzky for more than a couple of years. Um, so we're seeing Ovechkin. And so it's a case of recency. It's so many people on social media these days are calling LeBron the GOAT because they're seeing him. And some statistics would give you the argument because they didn't see Michael. So they can only go on YouTube and watch the curated highlights of his greatest moments. And anyone's going to look like the greatest of all time if you put all their best moments together. So there are people out there that are calling Ovechkin the GOAT. And so I feel the need to remind people how good Gretzky was, and I want to use this incredible milestone by Nikita Kucherov and Connor McDavid to do so. Nikita Kucherov, as I said, hit 100 assists, the fifth person to do it. In case you're wondering, yes, Wayne Gretzky is one of those five. And Nikita Kucherov not only had 100 assists in the season, but he also tallied 44 goals, which was good enough for the 10th most goals on the season. That is 40 goals in a season is an all-star level. That is a great number. It's 10th most in the league this year. Austin Matthews fell one short of 70. He was the leader this year, 69 goals. But Nikita Kucherov had a amazing 44 goals to bring his point total for the season to 144. The point total, obviously, is the combination of goals and assists for the season. So Kucherov's total was 144. The most points that Ovechkin has ever had in a season was 112, which he got during the 07-08 season, for which he was awarded the Hart Memorial Trophy or the league's MVP. 112 is pretty good. But as I said, Nikita Kucherov this season hit 144. He probably won't win the MVP. Wouldn't be surprised if they gave that to Austin Matthews. Wayne Gretzky holds the record for goals in a season, assists in a season, and points in a season. And they may have all come in the same season. But in 85-86, Wayne Gretzky had 163 assists. So, those keeping track at home, Nikita Kucherov, fifth person all time to do it. Connor McDavid, fourth person all time to do it. And they are 2/3 of the way to Gretzky's record. On top of that, that same season, Gretzky had 215 points, which is an NHL record, which means that he had, doing quick math, 52 goals that season on top of 163 assists. So, these incredible numbers by Nikita Kucherov don't even sniff Gretzky's record of 215 points, 163 assists. And for you Ovi fans out there, I'm a fan too. But I want to finally put to bed the argument that Alexander Ovechkin is even in the GOAT conversation in hockey. Because Alexander Ovechkin, admittedly, is 41 goals shy of breaking Gretzky's seemingly unbreakable record of 892 career goals. Ovechkin, at the close of the regular season, this season, has 853. As I said, that's 41 shy of Gretzky's mark. Alexander Ovechkin is 38. Gretzky retired at 38. So let's go beyond the goals, for which if Ovechkin retires after the season, he will have retired at the same age as Gretzky. Goals, he's still 41 shy, and that's the closest he gets. If he plays next year, he has a chance because he tallied 31 goals this season, but tallied 42 a year ago. So it might take him 2 seasons to age 40 if he decides to play that long, but he could potentially do it if he plays next season. But if he doesn't and they retire at the same age, I want to make a point that yes, Gretzky was a goal scorer, but that's not all he did. He also tallied 1,963 assists. How many assists does Ovechkin have? 697. So that's less than, or that's more than 1,200 assists less than Wayne Gretzky. Which means, how many points did Gretzky have? 2,857. Alexander Ovechkin, at age 38, 1,550. So Wayne Gretzky has nearly double the amount of points that Ovechkin has. Ovechkin is an elite goal scorer, the second greatest goal scorer the NHL has ever seen. But he is not nearly the all around player that Wayne Gretzky is. Nobody is. In all other sports, there is a debate as to who the greatest of all time is. In the NBA, it's is it Michael or is it LeBron? In Major League Baseball, it's really hard to have that conversation because you have the greatest pitchers, the greatest hitters, the greatest defensive players. It's really hard. But a group of names comes up. When you're talking about you can't compare pitchers to hitters, but when you're talking about pitchers, you're talking about Sandy Koufax, Nolan Ryan. Then you have Cy Young because the award for best pitcher is named after him, but he played so long ago that he doesn't come up as much anymore. In football, again, it's hard to have that conversation because so many different positions, but oftentimes it comes down to the quarterback position. And there should be no debate at this point in time that it's Tom Brady, but we still talk about Patrick Mahomes. We talk about Joe Montana. We talk about Peyton Manning, Drew Brees. All these names, multiple names always come up. In the NHL, there should be no debate. And until recently, when I saw the posts start popping up online about Ovechkin being the greatest, there was no conversation in hockey. And if there was, the only other name that was ever mentioned was Mr. Hockey, Gordie Howe, who until Ovechkin passed him on the all-time scoring list earlier this year, no, last at the end of last season, was second all time in goals at 802, I believe. So forever, there has been zero conversation about greatest of all time. So I want to remind you, too, that the NBA has retired the number 6 league wide for Bill Russell. Major League Baseball has retired the number 42 league wide for Jackie Robinson. Both of these players' numbers were retired for overall contributions to the game and society, not necessarily because they were the greatest in the sport, because there has been so much debate. I want to remind you that Wayne Gretzky retired from the NHL in 1999. And in 1999, immediately following his final game in the NHL, the league retired his number for everyone. It took no time at all for the NHL to say, no one will ever touch you as the greatest to ever play this sport, so no one can wear your number. That alone tells me about all I need to know. Uh, but his numbers are ridiculous. His numbers are ridiculous. He was just as good statistically better of a goal scorer than Alexander Ovechkin, and he was light years ahead of Alexander Ovechkin as a passer and an overall player. So for those of you younger fans out there that are looking at your TV screens and saying, obviously Alexander Ovechkin is the greatest of all time, do a little research. Don't be victim of recency bias. I've always said, and this is not just related to sports, if you love something, whether it be hockey or baseball or music or theater or movies or television or books, know the history, know who the greats are, know who the giants are, because it's not about listening to a current artist and saying this is the greatest album that's ever been made, because there are so many albums. There are so many movies, so many athletes. If you love something and you're passionate about something, do your research on the history of that thing. Don't just look at your TV screen. Look at greatness and say that is the greatest without doing a check to see is that true? Because it would take all of 10 seconds to, if you've never seen Wayne Gretzky, it would take all of 10 seconds to click on any number of websites, any number of links, highlight tapes, to see Wayne Gretzky is the greatest and no one even touches him. So I don't want to take away from what Connor McDavid and Nikita Kucherov have done this season, and as I mentioned, props also to Austin Matthews for getting 69 goals this season. I believe Wayne Gretzky too has the record there. He got the assist record and the point record in the same season. But in the 1981-1982 season, Wayne Gretzky scored a record 92 goals. And for those wondering, he scored 212 points that season. So when he broke the record 3 years later, it was his own record. Wayne Gretzky is undisputed the greatest of all time in hockey, and I don't want to hear anything else from anyone, regardless of your age. Everyone's entitled to your opinion, but there are some opinions that are just wrong. And that's all I have to say about that. Congratulations to Nikita Kucherov, Connor McDavid, and Austin Matthews for their unbelievable accomplishments this season. Separate from Wayne Gretzky. I just wanted to use those numbers to make a point to some things I've seen online. Wayne Gretzky is undisputed. Huge news in the NBA this week. The playoffs are underway. The in-season tournament has happened, and now there are a lot of game ones in the first round of the NBA. But for a few days, that was overshadowed by the revelation that Toronto Raptors' Jonte Porter, brother of Michael Porter Jr., was banned for life from the NBA for gambling. And we've seen this before in sports. I'll get that into that in a minute. And there's a gambling scandal going on in Major League Baseball right now, although the player is seemingly not involved in that situation. But Jonte Porter is banned for life from the NBA for gambling. He often bet against his own team, doing his best to hurt them on the court, and often told he gave friends that he knew were bookies information about his health and the health of his teammates, so that they could use that information for betting windows. And so not only broke laws of the NBA, but he bet against his own team. And yes, I know that gambling is legal in a lot of sports gambling is legal in a lot of states now, but not all of them. One of the reasons there was a problem for Ife Matsuhara with the Dodgers is it's not legal in California. But Jonte is out for life. He will never play in the NBA again. And the name that's come up a lot in the last couple weeks with the Shohei Ohtani situation and now the Jonte Porter ban is the name most synonymous with sports gambling, and that's Pete Rose. And many people have called recently for him to be reinstated by baseball. A, because gambling is now legal in many states, and B, and I think this is the most important distinction between what Jonte Porter did and what Pete Rose did, is that Pete Rose admitted that he bet on baseball and bet on his own team, the Cincinnati Reds, but that there's no evidence that he ever bet against them. Pete Rose never bet against his own team and allowed his own play to suffer because of it. And there's evidence to that effect because Pete Rose is the all-time hits leader in Major League Baseball. If he was betting against the Cincinnati Reds when he was a player, he probably wouldn't have had the most hits all time because you're not going to continue to hit if you're trying to get your team to lose, you're probably going to pull your punches as it seems that Jonte Porter did in Toronto. Now, Jonte Porter was not a big piece for the Toronto Raptors, spending much of his time with the Raptors with their G League affiliate. Um, but there was evidence that he didn't play his best at times, and because he was betting against Toronto. There was no evidence of that for Pete Rose because, as I said, Pete Rose is the all-time hit leader, and I believe he's second all time in RBIs, maybe. That's not those aren't the statistics of somebody that's trying to lose games. And so that's the argument I make is like, yes, he was betting on the Reds, but he was betting on them to win, which as a professional athlete should be your goal on a team anyway. I'm not defending him betting on the team, but he he was betting on the team to win and then he was going out there and trying to do it, which he would have been doing anyway if he hadn't been gambling. And so from that standpoint, I'm like, hey, he was betting on himself. You know, pretty much every athlete every day does that. There's just not money involved. Um, and also from a statistical and a historical standpoint, the all-time hits leader in Major League Baseball needs to be in the Hall of Fame because and before, listen, there's a difference between the all-time hits leader Pete Rose and the all-time home runs leader Barry Bonds is there is evidence that Barry Bonds took a performance enhancing drug that is specifically designed to up his power. Pete Rose, there's no evidence he ever took performance enhancing drugs to get his all-time hits record. And so for many people, myself included, Hank Aaron is the rightful home run king still because Barry Bonds' record has an asterisk next to it. There's no asterisk next to Pete Rose. Pete Rose just isn't in the Hall of Fame because of this gambling thing. So, wherever you stand on Pete Rose, whether he should be in the Hall of Fame or should not be in the Hall of Fame, should be banned or unbanned, his situation is very different from Jonte Porter's because there's evidence that Jonte Porter bet against his own team. But that's all I have to say about it. Let me know in the comments if you think the lifetime ban for Jonte Porter is fair. Let me know also in the comments if you think Pete Rose should be in the Hall of Fame because he's the MLB's all-time hits leader. Staying with Major League Baseball for my last two topics, there was a really cool moment this week as Chris Carey sat down in the Oakland Athletics booth to do play-by-play for the Athletics. The reason that this was significant is that he is the son of St. Louis Cardinals play-by-play broadcaster Chip Carey, the grandson of Skip Carey, and the great grandson of the famous Harry Carey. That's right, Chris Carey is the fourth generation Carey to broadcast a Major League Baseball game. And he did it against his father. Chip Carey's St. Louis Cardinals were in the opposing dugout. And I will put a picture up right now. Chip and Chris took a photo together on the field. Chip made a point to when the camera when the St. Louis camera went over to the Oakland dugout. Chip was quoted as saying, "That's my boy," and then later in the Oakland broadcast, Oakland color commentator and former pitcher Dallas Braden asked Chris Carey, "What is it like to be able to do this and to be able to do it with your father sitting in the next booth?" And Chris said, like, started to get choked up and basically said, "It's really, really special." And I have a special place in my heart for the Carey family. not only because Harry is iconic to all of baseball as the longtime voice of the Chicago Cubs, but that Harry Carey's son Skip and then grandson Chip were both longtime broadcasters for my favorite team growing up, the Atlanta Braves. And so to see this unfold in Oakland, the fourth generation Carey stepping into the booth is really, really cool. And Chip does have another son that is pursuing broadcasting, so there could be another Carey in the booth. And there was a home run call from Chris in that game after Oakland's Esteury Ruiz hit a home run, and Chris Carey's home run call sounds exactly like his father's. So it was a really special moment in Major League Baseball across the league for the fourth generation Carey to take his spot in the booth, and the tweets and the comments for Chris's performance in the booth was, can we keep him in the booth full time? I guess this was the tryout or a part-time thing, but fans were loving it, and you could feel the passion that comes from all Careys for baseball coming through Chris. And not only is it the fourth generation of Careys, it is the fourth generation of men named Harold Christopher Carey. That's right, all four Careys, all four generations of Careys have the exact same name. Harry Carey, Skip Carey, Chip Carey, and now Chris, all spent significant time in Major League Baseball booths. And I hope that Chris is around for years to come, just like his father, grandfather, and great grandfather before him. Speaking of fathers and sons, the last thing I want to touch on is Jack Leiter made his debut for the Texas Rangers this week on the 18th. He was the second overall pick in the 2021 MLB draft, behind only Pittsburgh selecting Henry Davis, who is now with the big league club as well. Jack Leiter struck out the first batter he faced against Detroit, who was Riley Green, on three pitches. And I think it was three fastballs. Struck him out on three pitches, and Al Leiter, Jack's dad, was in the stands, and longtime baseball fans know that Al Leiter had a long career himself. The rest of the day didn't go as well. The first inning was clean. The first inning he looked really good, and I think nerves caught up with him. The rest of the day didn't go as well. Jack only lasted 3.2 innings. He gave up 8 hits, 7 earned runs, 3 walks, 3 strikeouts. But your debut isn't so much about your performance, it's about the fact that you're there. And when you heard Jack talk about it at the end of the game, he wasn't, oh, my stuff could have been better. It wasn't the day I had planned so much as it was, oh, it's great to be out here. This is a dream come true. We got the win. That's all that matters, because the Rangers did end up winning the game 8-7. So it was good to see Jack kind of not fixating on the fact that nerves caught up with him. And the cool thing is that as I mentioned, Jack's dad Al was at the game. He had a lot of family at the game. Al and Mark Leiter, that the day that Jack took the mound on April 18th, became the first pair of brothers in Major League Baseball history to also have sons play in the majors. Jack is Al Leiter's son, and Mark Leiter's son, Mark Leiter Jr., debuted for the Phillies back in 2017 and currently plays for the Chicago Cubs. So Al and Mark Leiter became the first pair of brothers to have sons play in the league as well. Great week in baseball for families. Great episode today. That's all I have for you. This has been another episode of Empire Sports Talk. We are edging closer to our 100th episode. Thank you so much for all of your support. Please feel free to subscribe, like this video, subscribe on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts as well. We have so much content on our YouTube channel that goes beyond just these episodes. On Monday, we're uploading a new Xbox Xposé, so check that out. We oftentimes put up power rankings where we rank our favorite things, such as jersey numbers and stadium anthems and that kind of thing. So subscribe to our YouTube channel for more great content. I'm Roman Gennaro for Empire Sports Talk. It's a good day to go 1-0. I'll see you next time.